Go.
Thanks for coming. Tonight we watched The Social Network. So let's start by identifying the 4 through lines. Overall story. What's the overall story about? Think about bringing in whatever the conflict is. That's part of it. Real simple one line. Oh, come on.
It's about the founding of Facebook and who was involved and who should get credit, financial and masthead credit for Facebook. Okay.
So who should get credit and
money.
Money, yeah. Or founding of Facebook. All right. So who is the main character?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. Anybody? Is that everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And the influence character?
Sean.
Eduardo Savron.
You say Sean?
I think they were both influential characters. One was
Eduardo.
more, tried to be a moral compass, and then the other one was more of an inspiration for his like dreams, ambition, you know. And he went in the direction of Sean, not the direction of Eduardo. So I thought he had 2 pools, and then he ultimately chose the final pool, which was Sean.
Now, how is Sean? Now, how did Sean affect Mark Zuckerberg personally, as opposed to take away Facebook? Is Sean still part of the equation?
Okay.
Because remember, the main character through line is about the main character's personal issues, which
Yeah.
we see right
in
at
the
the beginning.
beginning, he had tight relationships. He started off struggling with Mark. Struggled in the beginning with his with the romantic relationship, but it was still a question for him, and he still had Eduardo in his life that was still, hey, apologize. And so he had a close, tight network of people that he still deeply cared about. He had ambitions, but he still felt like he had principles that he'd stick with them in regards to those ambitions. But when he met Sean, those slowly kind of broke apart to where he was more of an isolationist, more of just him and that computer versus his best man.
Him and his ego.
Him and his ego.
I think it's,
yeah.
you know,
I think that's
it's
what
what
it kind
kept
of
him company
symbolized.
more than anything. And
Yeah.
Sean really elevated that
Yeah.
relationship between him and his ego.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was-
I mean,
he and his ego were pretty tight.
Well,
the very first scene.
but Sean affirmed it.
I mean,
Sean,
you know that first scene where
True.
he's
Sean gave him permission to be who he always dreamed he was going to be. And when he was with Eduardo and a little bit with Erica, it was who he thought he should be, but he didn't give himself permission to go in that direction yet.
But didn't Sean basically represent, in a job sense, what the sort of the potential and the pitfalls of what could happen to Facebook, right?
Yeah, he did that as well.
But the whole, I mean, what was Mark struggling with personally? Because it wasn't about ego. There was no struggle with ego. He had that at the beginning. He's got ego to go around.
I think it kind of goes back
And
to
confidence in his ability was not an
what
issue
he
either.
was saying, like when he was talking to Eduardo about not going back to the beginning, not being that person that had nothing, and being nothing, but finally being able to. He defined himself by that. This wasn't just about a career or money or a job. He defined himself about accomplishment. His ambition goes hand in hand with who he saw himself as being like. I got out of the ghetto and I'm never going back to the ghetto. And from the very beginning, that was kind of like, it was like his moral pull of which direction can I achieve that? And he was always looking, like when Eduardo said, was it because I got into the Phoenix? He's talking back to when he was able to be a part of that dynamic of being the sorority and acceptance and that whole world that Mark was never quite a part of, that he kind of wanted to be. And so Sean gave him kind of like that permission to say, if you don't need that world needs you. So fuck him. And it's, excuse my language, sorry. And so
That's all right. We'll just make sure
And
we
so-
say it's not explicit, so it's not
sorry.
wrong.
So it's kind of like he had inside of himself these two poles that were always there. The person who wanted to get advertising and doing it the conventional way and wanted to do things right, and that's like his moral compass. And then the person who wanted to break all the rules and go as far as that dream and say, I don't have to play by that dynamic. I never was that dynamic. And that gave him that permission. And I think that maybe somebody from the outside might look at it and say, well, that's a career thing or that's an ambitious thing. But I think for that character in that story, that Mark, it was about defining himself as a man. And was he going to be the Sean or was he going to be Eduardo? And he wanted Eduardo to come with him with Sean, and in the context of that story. And when he saw that that wasn't going to happen, he had to make it, is he going to stay stagnant and stay in that gutter, or is he going to move forward? And he chose in his mind to move forward, and that was him deciding who he was going to be as Mark.
I think that's part of the story, but I don't think that's. I mean, the problem is that you have to take into consideration the framing device, because the framing device is actually really important in understanding the entirety of the story.
Okay.
You know, look at the last scene. You missed the first scene because the two of them strangely mirror each other.
Which,
Yeah.
Mark and the girl or Mark and Eduardo?
Mark and the girl.
Mark and Erica, yeah.
Alright.
I think that's
Right. I mean, look
I
at
get
that.
and he's
That's
still looking at her at the end, like
but,
coming back
but
to that beginning.
why?
And I
They
think
really no, bring it down to make it simple.
so it could be like the symbolism of the fact that he's looking on through Facebook instead of looking at the real
He,
But
picture.
what
he
is
wants
he-
to friend her.
He wants
Yes.
to friend her. He wants to
friend
reconnect.
her to be accepted.
He
It's-
might
right.
still feel like
He wants
that
friends.
regret. Yeah, he wants his friends, but that's
And
what
at
he
the
sacrificed.
beginning,
Yeah,
he doesn't
Careless.
want friends, even remotely.
Yeah.
And in fact, he
It
is.
says it.
He says it, right? No, he says it, and the irony is that here you have this person who has one friend in the world,
Mhm.
and he totally screws him over. So he has this one person. I mean, Sean is not a friend.
that's
Sean
correct.
doesn't even really pretend to be a friend, and Mark understands that.
Yeah.
Mark understands I can't hang with this guy because he's not safe, and he's not doing it because of me. He's just taking advantage of that, and
Yeah.
getting me professionally where I need things to go. He can offer me something professionally that Eduardo can't,
Yes.
because Eduardo has chosen a path that I've been trying to convince him that you're on the wrong path. Come to California, stay here,
So
let's
it's-
get some VC. But Eduardo on that path, no. But Eduardo has always been his friend, and now Eduardo clearly always thought more so because Mark never really, or rarely, on the few occasions you see them acting as friends,
Yeah.
him being friendly to Eduardo. But it's always been about the personal thing is about reaching out, risking yourself for friendship, not for anything else. And so I think where we see Sean, he really is in a step in how to get Facebook to where Mark's vision is for it. Because he really is telling Mark exactly what he believes is the case. So, someone who's been there, who says, I need it to be the marlin. I don't want 20 trout. And Eduardo is about getting those 20 trout. I'm going to get this little fish and this little fish advertiser and this little fish. And Mark's like, I don't want to monetize it until I've got something that I can really release it, and then we'll make money.
Yeah, I guess I still see like that ending of because he didn't choose. He didn't just say, I'm going to friend her. which would be a hand stamp of Eduardo's
No, he
name.
did. He
Oh,
did.
he did click
Yeah,
on
he
it?
clicked on it.
Yeah, he clicked on.
Oh,
he
maybe I
friended
just
her.
didn't see it.
No,
Oh, I
no,
thought,
he
said he,
sent
I
a
just
friend
thought he was,
request.
Well,
Which is
oh, I
very
thought he was just
He
thinking
friended
about
her.
it, and he had the
That's what you
action.
do. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to be accepted to become friends,
Yeah.
but he friended her.
I didn't
But-
realize,
but-
that-
but
I didn't
what
see
you're
the
saying-
cursor.
I mean,
Yeah.
you break down the archetypes. I mean,
Yeah.
Sean. I mean, they clearly set up him being the temptation character, Eduardo being the conscience character. But
Yes.
but Sean's also the help character. So it's like a combination of temptation and help. Whereas Eduardo's more support.
Yes,
Which there's a contrast there between support and help. But you're seeing the conscience and temptation path, basically, in relationship to the
Yes.
protagonist.
yes.
Which way do I go in a business sense? But in terms
I
of the
think for me
personal
it's because I
relationship,
didn't actually, maybe because of, my eyes and the lighting maybe. I didn't actually see him make that final decision. And so
Right.
that's why I was thinking, how much of that influence came across. Was
But
he
even
still alone?
if he had canceled it, that he was thinking about
But the-
friending her,
Yeah, but the fact that he
the fact that he's
made
even
the
looking
physical,
at it, it's just sort of, yeah.
the fact that he made the physical action of I'm gonna at least try, and now it's up to her.
Yeah.
Then to me, that is the final stamp of Eduardo's influence on him.
Right.
Whether no matter where direction that goes, he still it ended with his choice of conscience.
Right. Well, now that's the thing. Conscience is different. Conscience, when you're looking at it in the big picture, there's going to be a
I don't
goal.
think I'm using him correctly. His choice of
Well,
again, it goes back to that
he made
alone
it. He made
versus
it.
not.
He made a choice, and
Yeah.
he feels in a resolved place about it, as
Yeah.
opposed to it being a bad choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means essentially Eduardo and Mark's relationship,
Friend.
friends,
friendship.
and it's obviously it's a
Friendship.
deteriorate.
well, it's a stressed, and you can even see it when in the deposition. As far as Eduardo, he still feels very strongly for and we can kind of sense that Mark still feels for him as well, although he screwed him over. So it's pretty much they're estranged friends now. But there is that, we're looking for conflict, and in a relationship, it's definitely in that friendship. So I think for the most part, Sean wouldn't be the influence character. There may be a scene or two where he may act as it because Eduardo drops out of the story for a period of time. But for the most part, I think it was Eduardo. Okay, so let's go over to the main character resolve, talking about Mark. Is he a change or steadfast character, and why? And how do we know?
Are you reading right now?
I think he's a change character because in the first scene, he says, "I don't want friends," and at the end of the movie, he is asking for friends by clicking on Eric Albright's profile and sending a friend request.
But even more so, he's also, well, not more so, but in addition, he's completely oblivious to anybody. No, go away. Hold on. He's completely oblivious to what's going on with anybody else around him. Like, he cares less. He doesn't even realize that he's, insulting her right in front of her. And then at the end with
No, he does. He
No,
just doesn't
but
care.
he doesn't care. But then at the end with Rashida Jones, he's actually observant that she hasn't had anything to eat all day. It's like there's something outside of himself that he's actually taking in. Just before it was just all about him.
And even after she rejects him, he still wants to be friends. So
Right,
he doesn't
yeah.
take it personally. He does that. There's a reason she can't do it, and that she gives him some good advice, professional advice, but he still is interested on a personal level that maybe connect as friends. So yeah, I think that if we didn't have that beginning, the first scene and the last scene, it would have been extremely difficult to tell what's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
we needed to have it bookended like that, because the character is so unlikable in many ways, as well as does not really connect with people at all. So we needed to see him really very disconnected with the first woman. And then suddenly looking outside himself and risking rejection as opposed to immediately rejecting the first woman. She's not rejecting him. It's just like, okay, she's just questioning what he's saying, and suddenly he's like dumping all this stuff and saying all these things. So she's like, okay, then I'm going to reject you. But she wasn't trying to reject him, but he immediately jumped first. He was. All right, so change. All right, how about his approach? Is he a doer or a beer? Does he personally seem to approach things by changing the world around him, or by changing himself or his behavior internally, how he thinks about it or what he thinks? Then, example.
My initial approach would be he goes about creating these different programs and setting up these different setting up an account, financial account, and setting this up and setting that up. That seems to be a doer. He's not changing. I don't see him as changing himself
Creating this
or adapting.
Go ahead, what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think he basically creates Facebook.
Now,
No.
but that's over here, possibly in the overall story. What is he personally? I mean, what is
So
he?
when he's rejected, he goes and creates this page to slander women. And he blogs it.
Well,
He blogs it.
right. I think.
Yeah. And then he starts his site right after. But making fun of him.
Okay, so how does that change the physical world? What is it doing? How does it? If it's solving a problem as a doer, I mean, unless the physical typing is what he's doing, that seems to solve his problem. Otherwise, is he changing? You know, how is he resolving his anger issues with that?
For one, there's a very good example. One of the first things he does is create or work with Face Smash. He sets one girl against the other. He basically creates chaos in the college campus by setting this girl against that girl, this one against that one.
Okay, but how is that? What personal problem does that resolve for him?
He personally felt rejected by this girl at the very beginning, so he lashes out by causing, I don't think it would be jealousy, by causing animosity amongst the different women on campus.
Well, okay, I think that the blog speaks to what he's doing personally. I think him programming speaks to what he does professionally. You know, he's able to crash he's able to create a site that gets all that attention and crashes the Harvard computer system. That's a professional move. That's not a personal move. You know, and he does it in a way, sure, it's thematically associated, but it's not toward that one woman. It's saying he doesn't have it's not misogynistic per se. He just knows guys, and he knows how he's got access to some of the men in men's emails because of Eduardo. Remember, he wants to send it out, and that's actually the second part. That's what he starts the Facebook thing. Think of another instance. All right, how does he deal with?
He sees he sees Erica, and he goes up and tries to talk to her. He engages with her, tries to engage with her. And I think that's a doer. He's not trying to go up, and he doesn't apologize, which would be the change, which would be putting on a show, would be changing himself. He goes up to try to talk to her, take her to a place, and she rejects him, but I see that as kind of a doer.
Okay.
See, I would say beer. Because I mean beer, like all around, his approach to everything is just to be an
You
asshole
need
to
to actually
everything.
back it up with example.
You have the minimal amount of attention. That is like a beer way of solving his problem. He's like in that
Deposition.
in the deposition. He's like, he's just, whenever he's faced with anything, he either tries to change people's attitudes about certain people. Like the blog is just about changing people's attitudes about Erica. It's not about like whether he can type faster or whether he can write the program fast enough. It's just being a jerk to everybody around him. That's how he gets things done. Like
It's
personally.
manipulative.
Well, manipulative, but I mean, yeah, and also, I mean, he's getting drunk, so I mean, it's just like he's trying to change himself there, and he's just like being a whiny brat.
And he lashes out, like, sorry to cut you off, but like even when the math problem, like it was here's 1,000 and then it's 18,000. He says, I'm gonna check your math.
Yeah.
It's just such a like
Well,
emotional
he's very
jerk.
much copying attitude. I mean, his whole thing is copying an attitude, and trying to be smarter than, you know, just trying to be a wise ass. You know, he does it with the girl.
He does
at
it
the
by
beginning.
irritating them, by being irritated,
Right, yeah.
which is changing his behavior,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
changing. He doesn't do anything. He forces other people to do things by being such a, you know, yeah.
It's already
Well,
explicit. It's already explicit.
explicit.
But
But that's
trying
part
to
of the
be an
story.
asshole.
I know,
Yeah, I know.
But he's right. But he tries to be an asshole.
Right.
You know, he tries to make himself unlikable so that he will be rejected before
Oh,
he has a chance to be liked.
In fact, that's brought up at the end of the movie.
Right.
At the very with the lady deposition related, she points that out.
Right. But what she says is not that he's an asshole, which is he uses that same line. It's like, no, you're just trying to, you know, make people think you're an asshole, but you aren't.
Well, let's see if this makes him a stop character.
doesn't she say you're trying to be one?
He's
Trying
working
to
so
be
hard.
No, you're not an
Working so hard to
asshole.
be-
You're just trying so hard to be one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
So
To be
that's,
an asshole.
Well, that would be a start character.
So,
Well, I thought,
You're not
but
try-
he,
in other words,
I thought somebody created their own problems. Was a stop character.
right, but you're not trying to. You're just trying to be one. Well,
Well, he would have to stop trying to be an asshole.
Well, we'll see.
I mean, it feels like a stop story. I mean, it feels like
Totally
a chip.
feels
yeah,
like a
we'll
stop
see. It does
Feels-
sound like
he has a little bit of a chip on his
a little.
a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
shoulder.
I mean, he's not being jealous of Eduardo. He's stop being jealous of everybody else.
I mean, look how he deals with Eduardo. He can't. Does he confront Eduardo with the whole relationship thing? You know, and about screwing him out of this stuff? No. He's really slimy about it. I mean, he's not someone who does something like that. You know, he lets things happen.
Well, then even
Because-
like when he decides to go to California, is that manipulative because he decides to go before telling Eduardo, and Eduardo just has to go along with it at that point because the decision's been made?
Oh, that
That's
sounds like-
well, no, but that's
sounds like
Facebook.
Story
That's
Driver.
not person. That's Facebook.
But, yeah.
That's not a personal choice.
Right.
You know, that's where you make the decision. You know, and of course it goes. You know, he's in the zone. He's always, you know, solving things by just sort of disconnecting from the world. He's constantly disconnected. That's how he solves things, by disconnecting from people and disconnecting from his environment. You know, he just sort of tries to keep emotionally separate. That's his preference. You know, and may or may not be successful, but he is obviously. But so I think he is more of a beer, certainly in terms of his personal preference. You know, again, a beer and a doer, you're a mind that exists in a corporeal world. It's not one or the other. It's just which one is dominant. You know, that's why it's a preference as opposed to, you know, it always goes one direction. And it being the context of the main character is really important to keep in mind. So it's the personal side. And in fact, he's a changed character, so it's another way we know how he's changed. He does something about it.
Yeah.
He sends a friend request. That's the first time he's sent something out.
And even his move to talk to her in the bar is like he's flirting with the change.
Right. It's not a oh, I'm going to make a decision and change. Right. It's over the course of the story. He has changed. All right. Problem solving style, linear or holistic? And why?
Doesn't, in the beginning, when he's talking with the woman in the, wherever they were at the very beginning, he makes assumptions about her based on what she says. She says, I don't remember the specifics, but she says such and such, and then he says, oh, therefore this and this and this, and then she points out, well, just because I said that doesn't mean.
Or yeah, she said, which study group, or what was it, finals club
What's
is the easiest to get into, and so he just made all sorts of extrapolations from her simple question, which one's the easiest to get into.
So you haven't said what that means. You definitely accurately described what happened in the film. And so what is it? Is
I'm just trying to clarify.
Is that linear or holistic?
Linear.
Okay, so what is the cause and what is the effect?
Because she said this, therefore she's also this.
Yeah, see, there you're running into the problem because it's not that kind of a relationship. He's looking at, you're saying this because it has this relationship to this other thing, which implies that I then have this different relationship to you. And so you're trying to denigrate me by making this connection that is, and she's like, no, I didn't, I was just saying that. I was not making all these connections. And in fact, he seems to be an extremely holistic thinker. He gets evidence of, oh, it's relationships that everybody are, what is everybody concerned about? They're all concerned about the relationships. And that insight is a holistic insight. I mean, that's one of the things what I think probably made him so successful at understanding how to create Facebook the way it was, because it wasn't linear. You know, it was the closest thing to being linear, and it really isn't, was I will send this to one person, but how many will they send it? But they're going to send it based on their relationship, not based on causality.
Is this evident in the scene with the Winklevoss is first talking to him about the Harvard connection, because they just start talking and he leaps to where they're going?
Yeah, no, well, it's because he's looking at the relationship, and look how he pushes them off. He's always playing the relationship. He's keeping them to the balance by, there's not that list seems to be like a whole bunch of causalities, but it's really not. All he's doing is delaying by, essentially changing the pattern, so keeping them going. He's constantly saying maybe, 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 maybe. Yes, but not right now. Yes, but not right now. Yes, which basically is how you lead along men. Linear thinkers, that's how you lead them along. You give them a paradox, and they will always read it the way they want it to be read. So if they want it to happen and you say, yes, but I can't, that means yes. Just not right now. And maybe always means, again, whatever they think it's going to be. If they think it's a no, then maybe means no. That's the way women lead men along. And there's really no end to that for the most part.
But also, the distinction between holistic and linear is, I don't care about monetizing the site. It needs to be cool.
Well,
right.
I need large enough relationship. The product to the rest of the world has to be the right relationship before we then.
But even that cool thing about creating that cool atmosphere, like when they're searching for the two hackers, it's all, they're drinking and they're trying to hack and code and it's going around, and then Eduardo comes in and he's like, well, yeah, because they're going to be drunk when they're actually trying to build Facebook. Like, that's the linear way of thinking about it. Like, they would never drink, but he's like, but no, this is cool because this is like what they do at the other place. Like, he's trying to create that atmosphere.
Right. I mean, Eduardo is majorly linear. We need revenue to keep this, I will go to this one and then this one and this, and we'll try to get, he's extremely linear, which of course is one of the other areas that they're conflicting.
See, I was going to say holistic just because he's so genius and he thinks so much bigger than I, that I'm sure he's not linear because he doesn't think like I do.
Well, Bill Gates is extremely linear. So,
But this guy, like, you can just tell he makes such leaps. Like,
right, but he's looking, again, he looks to the relationship, he looks for the balances. So he sees where there's a deficit. Oh, this is where
Bill
we.
Gates is totally linear.
Oh, I think so. I believe so. I don't know that for a fact. I mean, I believe so.
But still, that's why Mark is attracted to Sean, is because because it's not about
It's not about logic.
it's not about logic.
Sean is that one character that I always every once in a while talk about, that ghost character, whatever. It's here's what happens to me if I do it wrong. He's there, but before the will of God goes out. And he's the warning character. So that every once in a while you just see that one show up. It's the path you don't want to follow, because this is where you're going to end up. And of course, in the linear world, Eduardo's right about that. Sean is exactly Sean, but what Sean does is he does bring it to that next level. He has those connections from those relationships. So, and it's kind of interesting because male audiences tend not to be able to empathize with a holistic main character, which just makes him feel that much stranger and unreadable and different. Yes, different. Okay, driver, action or decision. Do actions drive decisions, or do decisions drive actions, and why?
Feels to me like the big moments, or decision. Decision to go to California. Decision. When you lay out the chronology of the story, I mean, obviously we're jumping, back and forth in time. But in terms of there's a decision. Yes, we are going to sue, and it felt like it was going to lead into the third act. But we've been watching the third act, in bits and pieces already. But it felt like a major. I mean, obviously that was the deciding moment. We are going to sue, and that led to all the.
And even the other half of that, which is at the end, he decides to settle. They don't linger on it.
Right.
The movie
The decision. There is a
to
decision that will close this all off. We don't see it, but you're already set up as to what it's going to be.
And the whole inciting incident is.
Deciding to go to California is a major actor.
Yeah, but at the beginning, it's just deciding to do this venture and deciding to let this, are you in or not? Well, I'm in. Okay, and then that's kind of where the plot.
That's when it really kicks in, right? Okay. How about limit, time lock or option lock, and why?
I would say option lock, and perhaps the options would be, for one case, how the vassal, the Weiss, the rivals try to stop his efforts to create Facebook, or it could also be his efforts to broaden Facebook to different, like for example, different colleges. You see it expanding. We've got Stanford, we've got colleges in England and so forth.
Right. Well, I think if you look at it there in terms of conflict, the conflict begins when he steals their idea, and then he's sort of like, okay, you have the Harvard conflict, getting past that, and then you have the multi-school conflict, and you have sort of the California conflict, and then you have
which direction to go.
The next expansion, and then the final one is settling all of those, I would say dead bodies, but they're not dead, but the dead weight that has collected on Facebook, according to Mark Zuckerberg, in order for it to go full forward, fully free. At least in the structure of the story, I mean, the movie. Whether or not that's the way it was in real life is irrelevant, because we're just looking at this book or this movie. So I mean, that option lock does seem to work, and when basically they've gotten as big as they need to get to take it to the next step, then the last thing is to be able to jettison the two things that could bring it down, which is these lawsuits that are against them. So I think, definitely think it's option lock. I think that's well described. Okay, outcome, success or failure.
I think it's a
Success.
failure because he has to.
This is about Facebook.
Success.
This is about Facebook, not about Mark.
No, I know, but here's why I think it's failure anyway.
Okay.
As the guy who wanted to be the founder of Facebook, he had to readmit Eduardo Saverin onto the masthead and pay off the local guy to get them.
Those are costs.
Okay.
I think, and they're even described. I don't. That's not saying that. If that's the goal, I'm not sure what the goal is. It's sort of a little difficult, a little amorphous right now. But I mean, if the goal was, I mean, the thing is that did Facebook ultimately become, I guess,
The next big thing.
The next
I think
big
it's,
thing,
and I think the whole kind of goal, even though it wasn't so explicitly stated, well, it was at one point, kind of halfway with Sean being there, but the goal kind of is to come up with the next big thing.
Well, that was really early on. It was. I mean, that's kind of how they define themselves. Even the president of Harvard said, you know, you're all trying to find the next big thing. You don't want to work for yourself. You don't want to work for someone else. You know.
And so, yeah, to me, it felt like an unhappy success. That's how I felt. So I would consider it a success, but there are obviously costs and.
Yeah, I think what you're feeling is, I think it's success. I mean,
I'm definitely feeling a lot of weight on this.
right, but I
It's-
think
there
that's.
may be
I think what
cost.
you're gonna find is the cost. It's gonna be one of these things where it's like a Pyrrhic victory, where the costs are so high, particularly within the framework of this film, you know, are so high that, and where you see them is in the relationship through line is where the cost is. It's huge negative on the relationship side.
Can I argue another? Here's how I would frame the success then. What he wanted to do was get into the Phoenix Club, and at the end he's saying, I can buy the Phoenix Club and make it into a ping pong league.
But that's
Yeah.
not what everybody in the story is concerned with. That's the friendship part.
What movie did we watch?
See,
No.
That's what, if we had the equivalent of a success,
Mhm.
you know, failure in the relationship, it would clearly be a failure. And remember, the relationship is the emotion, is the heart, the emotional center of the story. So there's a big negative in the emotional center of the story. It's not what these are asking.
Yeah, logistically, it was a success. They settled. $65 million is not.
Right.
It's
a parking,
what
a
it's
parking ticket.
Yeah, parking ticket. So logistically, is that?
And he's a billionaire, right?
Yeah,
The youngest
right.
billionaire in the world. So it's like, okay, by any objective sense, it's a success story. I think, you know. And judgment, good or bad.
Good.
As I was saying,
You think it's good?
And why?
Because he was unsuccessful.
I'm sorry, it's good because he was unsuccessful. Good means was able to resolve personal angst. Bad means or angst or inequity. Bad means you aren't able to resolve the inequity.
At the end of the story, I don't see that he changes his approach really in any. I see at the end, as you pointed out, he sends a request to be added on her as a friend, but I don't see that. I see it as more ambivalent. Like he hasn't resolved. Maybe that's the actor's face, but I don't see him as resolving his approach to people, his personality, his
The way
personality problem.
I mean, he does not seem to be happy at the end. You know, they intentionally closed the movie on an unhappy face. You know, yeah, and yet he seemed to make a positive change, but I think this is a case where this change was too little, too late, and that's why, you know, just like in Hamlet, you know, he changes his character, but it still ends up badly, I think, emotionally for him.
He recognizes it, but I don't think he's solid. I mean, it's not like a huge bad. It's like it's right on the border, right there.
Right,
but I think
right.
it's more weighted
no,
towards.
it's not a Hamlet. You know,
Yeah.
Sung to his death that, you know, telling everybody to go, you know, tell my wolf will fail and then it croaks. It's not that kind of bad. But it definitely doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like a happy end.
Yeah, he's like the lonely villain.
You want some one friend to it.
Right, with the potential of maybe, but not that kind of a friend though. It's just going to be a Facebook friend.
But still, you could tell it was the author's, conceit to do the friend request thing. I mean, it was a metaphor, obviously.
Right.
And not only that, but he's lowered himself down by having to add himself, having to send that friend request. He's at the very bottom of the totem pole socially.
Yeah, and it's not a personal connection.
Yeah.
So, okay. And I think it does seem to be more unresolved than resolved, especially since he sure feels bad about what he did to his friend. I mean, that's very clear that maybe he felt bad about it at the time, but he really feels bad now because he sort of all put it in perspective, and he has changed over the course, so now he's a little more sensitive to it. Still an asshole, but okay.
It's like the more holistic terms would be, does he feel better or does he feel worse? And I think he does feel worse for the end. Mostly. Personally.
Worse than he was at the beginning? Well, he feels. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was feeling before, too. He was just bottling it all up. And just kind of spitting it out as vitriol on his blog. Okay, so domains. Where do we see Mark? Going to be either in psychology or fixed attitude, or manipulation, fixed attitude. And where do we see the overall story?
For a while, I saw the overall story and situation because of the existence of Facebook. The rivals are annoyed that Facebook exists. Facebook, if he hadn't stolen the idea and created this sensation, the conflict wouldn't be there. That's one way of taking it.
It doesn't feel like a state of affairs. It feels like a process. So, I mean, I like manipulation. I like psychology. So many.
It can't be psychology. Oh, for Mark.
No,
sorry. I cut you off.
Well, again, it's trying to separate. It's trying to separate the personal from the main character from the protagonist. All right.
Where do you see the main character?
Well, as a beer, I would see him in fixed attitude. I'd see him as caught in a state of mind. Okay, personally.
Which is what?
He's full of himself. He's got this. He's kind of megalomaniac. He's kind of what's the word? He's just it's huge ego. He thinks he's better. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else, and he sets out to try to prove it. In the depositions.
He's an asshole. Everybody thinks he's an asshole.
Right.
That's his problem.
Yeah.
And the one step lower.
Everybody's attitude, everybody's opinion of him is you're an asshole.
Assholery, and that's
you're gonna think it's because you're this nerd and because girls don't like nerds, but really it's because you're. It's like set up right in the very beginning. That's what he has to deal with. It's like,
I like manipulation / psychology for the overall story because to me, just when you see scenes like when Sean's there, when Sean enters the scene,
Totally manipulation.
it is dripping with psychology. Even the Larry Summers scene is dripping with psychology and how you think about things. It's not what you think; it's how you think. Joe, try to think differently. Move on to the next big thing. So all the scenes with the third-party characters, to me, just seem dripping with psychology.
Even the comparing which girl is better than the other. Remember, that's the whole. The whole thing is it's not making a rating So it's not being sort of objectifying. You're basically being very subjective about it, and it's very manipulative of the system. And the way you make it exclusive so that people want to be part of it. So the entire construction of Facebook is designed to manipulate people and to draw them in and to want to spend time with it because it has these things that are lures.
I mean, even look at the initiation, ceremony for the Phoenix Club, whatever. It's just playing. What are the three lies? They'll take your pants. I mean,
it's all about humiliation. It's
right.
not about, and even all the activity scenes, the racing, the boats, the this. There's no conflict in those scenes. They exist. They're good scenes.
Right.
They're not conflictual.
The conflict doesn't happen until some guy approaches him and says, "Oh, you just lost. Oh, I've never seen a race so close. Oh, it's just that's what grates them. Is how he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
We lost. Okay. And then the other guy, and then of course, they find out about Facebook, and again, it's they keep questioning how should we think about this.
All right.
The two.
So that puts that's excellent. So that puts the influence character in the situation, which how would you define him?
He's got all the money.
I think he's the wealthy.
From money, yeah.
Well, he's
he's the best friend.
He's the bank. And there's certainly a status issue from he's having the money, but he is the bank.
Yeah.
And he's also he is the only friend, but it's which pre-exists him bringing in the money.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you see the money though is really part of the Facebook stuff, which is where you have the relationship and the activity. And that's where getting the getting things and trying to get the advertised, all the
going to New York versus going to California.
Right, and all the conflict that exists in their relationship because of what they're doing or what they're not doing or what they can get or what they can't get or what they...
And because a lot of the lawsuit is tied up with their relationship, or there seems to be a lot of emotion stuff during the lawsuit, that be part of the activity too, like suing your friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the suggestion that Mark planted the story about the animal cruelty,
and possibly even call the cops. It was interesting. Yeah, I mean that is a perfect example of the manipulation of the overall story. It's like, look, it's going to be turned around very simply. Just all I have to do is ask these questions, and people are going to be thinking that way. Which again is what the point of his first girlfriend. It's like, look, you put this out there. You've changed how people think about me, and it's not going away. And no, I'm not going to. I'm not going to change my relationship with So, okay, everybody comfortable with at least those domains?
Oh, yeah, and I mean, like, Eduardo's girlfriends completely whack. Just
right.
So much psychology everywhere.
and of course, Sean is a major player.
Right.
Total manipulator.
Oh, total.
And Eduardo is sort of the only one who's afraid. Just sees all these manipulations and then gets blindsided because he thought he trusted his friend more than his objective relationship. Cool, baby. All right. So now let's look at the concerns. Do we want to swing over there?
Sure, if you want to.
Let's watch out for Roger.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome. All right, so now what we want to do is we've got our main character in attitude, influence character in situation, overall story and manipulation, or psychology, and then activity is where the relationship going is. We wanted to see which of the concerns what concerns we have for each of those. Like I've mentioned times before, you basically pick by position. So if you pick in any one of them, the upper left, it will be the upper left quadrant for all four the upper right, lower right, lower left. So we have we have past understanding, memory, developing a plan, or how things are changing, progress, doing, impulsive responses and playing a role, present, gathering information, contemplation, conceiving an idea, or future, obtaining innermost desires, and nature. So, do we have anybody have an idea, either a feel for something or feel definitely not?
I'll take a stab. The pink, the upper right.
Uh-huh.
All of them.
So progress, doing, impulsive responses, and playing a role.
Yeah. Under the overall story, manipulation, playing a role could also be interpreted as being. It's not. I don't see them as becoming something. I see them as how people perceive each other.
Okay, and how do we see that in people that other than Mark and Eduardo? So,
well, for example, the Erica Albright.
Mhm.
People then see her like the bra size, the small bra size, and so forth. People see her. People see her in a certain way. I don't see her as becoming that thing in actuality. I see her as taking on a role.
Well, try to think of a they perspective. So think of rather than an individual, think about them as a group. A group of computer programmers are trying to do something that has to do, and they're concerned with, role playing or conceiving an idea or changing its nature, developing a plan. Obviously, all of those are going to be in there. Each act will explore one of them, but one's going to be the central concern all the way through.
And playing a role, when we talk about like lifestyle, I mean that's clearly a signpost, probably signpost 3, I'm guessing, because that clearly comes into play. But I don't think that's what the plot is about. The overall story plot. I mean, to me, the story goal is come up with the next big thing and make it a big thing. So that to me would reduce it to either conceiving or developing a plan.
Or even they're all arguing over who came up with Facebook.
Who conceived this? Right. Who came up with the idea? Yeah.
And then
Yeah, that's
activity
ideas
is
about-
gathering information.
Right.
Oh, well,
Well, it's all about learning. It's about learning. I mean, gathering information is also about learning. So,
but even as friends, you can argue that they're really learning what each one is made of. Totally. Just on that personal level. I mean, there's a lot of gathering information and disseminating information along the way. But I think to state it in a more personal way, to really.
But it's not a person. You mean in the relationship?
In the relationship, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Going back, I made that argument about playing a role because I also saw impulsive responses in him very much. Maybe that's a character trait.
Okay, but how do you see that all the way through? That's the important part. You have to see it.
He seems to spit out. It's almost like a disease or congenital condition he had. His responses to people just seem to provoke antagonism.
Yeah, but all right, but how does that deal with his personal issue of not being able to, really be a friend or be able to be, emotionally connect?
I mean, yeah, again, it's clearly a signpost, clearly part of it. But in terms of what he's about as a character, the totality, again, he keeps saying his whole issue is, you're not, he's not an asshole, but he sure is trying to be. He's trying to make people think he's an asshole, and thinks he, which kind of puts it into conscious realm, which is contemplation. I don't think it's. You see memories. I think memories maybe is the signpost at the very end. I would like probably impulsive responses is signpost 1 and signpost 4. The contemplations I don't think memories is the overall one, so that would, to me, reduce it down to the lower right.
Or it could be the benchmark.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it could be. Yeah, to me, by process of elimination, it would be.
Okay, well then how would you see, you've got present for the influence character. How do you see Eduardo as present?
What's that?
He's unhanded.
Sure.
Well, and he's trying to attract.
Well, the themes underneath are really good.
Yeah.
Work attempt. That's. But in terms of in terms of his impact as a friend, again, he's trying to be a friend, but there's that constant disconnect with Mark. That they just seem to fail to be, to really be friends in the moment. You see it especially early on when he's, they're at the party and he tries to dance up to him. He's trying to influence him in a way of saying, let's just, live a little bit, try to live a little better balance, in the moment.
To me, I think part of the reason that he has this influence on Mark, because he's kind of, he's sort of, I don't want to say stuck in the present, but he looks everything about right now. He's not looking ahead. He's not looking behind, and that's really troublesome for it's a real problem for Mark Zuckerberg, because he sees the short-sightedness of it. You're looking at where we are, and that's not a big enough picture. And you pulled the checkbook, froze the accounts. Do you realize what that could do to us? It's like, you're looking. Yes, I want to get your attention right now.
Yeah.
So he's because he's so focused on the right now. I'm in school. So I'm going to get an internship. I'm going to get these ads because we need money. It's like, no, you're not thinking big enough, and that focus on the present is what's constantly annoying and irritating Mark. Pushing him to have to deal with it, and which is one of the reasons why, again, he's focused on the present. He's able to make that mistake because he's not thinking long term. He's not thinking about anything else. He's not thinking about the past. He's just like, this is where I am, and I never thought I'd be here. Even at the end, he still is focused on the right now. If you take the deposition as the fourth act, the last act, he's still in that concerned with where we are right now. Yeah. It's just like he never seems to get out of go anywhere beyond the immediate present. And I think that's what basically is one of the things that forces Mark to change.
Exactly what I was trying
to. And I mean, the contemplations, he's stuck in his head. He's always thinking. He's always thinking, and thinking about what people think of him, and thinking about what he's, or not caring about what people think of him. You want to know what I'm thinking about right now? I'm thinking about you very little. In fact, I think this. I'm giving you very little amount of my attention. So it's like, all times he's always thinking. He's always thinking. And that's a problem because it's not connecting with other people and creates conflict. I'm not sure. I mean, it does. It's not pleasant. And then, and the learning, you look at the two of them, they're both learning the relationship. They're both learning how to become businessmen. I mean, you've got the one who's got a business, he's getting a business degree. They're in school, they're learning together, unfortunately not at the same rate. And because they're not learning evenly, it creates this conflict between the two of them. it stresses out their relationship. And again, and I think you brought it up, the fact that the whole thing is over, who owns the idea, who came up with the idea, which is, I think that's it's excellent, and you see that at the very end, that's the importance of having his name back on Facebook, is that he was one of the people who conceived it. And if in fact, it would, the thing is, I think the success and the failure and the good and the bad, they're both really sketchy. They're not really strong.
Very
because you could easily,
very
because you could say, all right, the goal is to properly identify who came up with the idea, that it's a success. Because that's really sort of what the whole thing is about. And by the end of it, you kind of know exactly who came up with the idea. Everybody knows whether it's disclosed is not the issue. It's just sort of like, okay, where did this come up? Where did this come from? And the fact that the payoffs, they acknowledge you are a part owner. You came up with a part of this idea. This is your part conceptualizer, conceiver of this. So I think that in that regard, I think that does work well for being such an abstract concept. I mean,
you don't see many movies in that, especially in
not with the overall story of
No.
conceiving. No,
It's fairly rare. And you see more stage plays in that area. That's easy.
okay. So why don't we bring up the software now? I'm going to bring up this screen.
Yeah, actually, a lot of movies have been.
Yeah,
right.
under conceiving?
Oh yeah.
Like what?
Like Ratatouille, Frozen.
Do we put Frozen under conceiving?
Huh?
I thought we couldn't.
Or was in present, on lower right. Or are you talking
I
in the
thought we could-
overall?
we could-
No. The OS is being in conceiving.
Oh.
Not that it's
I
not
thought
that it's using that quadrant, but it's
so.
actually.
Conceiving would be what? Ratatouille, Up in the Air.
I wanted
the other ones.
the South Park movie, which is ridiculous. South Park movie is under manipulation, under psychology conceiving.
Let's do this.
But that was South Park movie. 99. I know. I know, and the fact that this movie took place in like 2003 and 2004, it's like, really? It's that recently? That Facebook came into being?
I think the movie came out in 2010. Which, the events were 2004, and the movie was 2010.
Right.
I remember. Yeah, so that's,
But I guess I didn't really start using Facebook until like 07 or 08, and that was one of the, I was dragged into it getting the screen.
The story expert on this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the far right. On the bottom.
Probably around 2007 or something.
The other right.
I'm quitting first.
Oh, okay.
It's like 1997 all over again.
What?
I opened the other one.
You opened the other Dramatica? Not that one. Okay, so we have, let's see, change.
there we go.
I don't see a whole lot of male main characters that are deer holistic. At least not in this culture.
Well, he writes like a lot of holistic.
Pardon?
Doesn't he usually write holistic?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Mr. Cupid Man, American President, and West Wing.
Oh yeah, well, huh?
I don't know. I just thought about it.
I think we've done a few good men here.
Good beers.
Right, but you have the thing is that the guy, that the president is more holistic. I think the main character, which is a woman, is linear.
In American President?
In the American President. Remember,
Right.
she's the
Yeah.
Annette Bening.
Yes.
So she's a very linear thinker, and she's not seeing all the relationship issues that he has to deal with, trying to balance.
What about A Few Good Men?
That one I don't know. So I saw when it came out.
He does.
And I remember-
out of nowhere.
I remember that court scene, and that's about it.
Yeah. Kind of. I guess.
Let me know when
I guess
you're.
I'm good, I'm
more
good.
of the
Good,
impact-
okay.
I mean, Tom Cruise is the main character.
Yeah.
More's the impact character. Yes.
All right, here we go. Let's
Anyway.
okay. So if we
Concentrate.
go into the all right, stop with Brian. Okay. So we have conceiving an idea which has permission, efficiency, need, and expediency, which I think are really good. Really good. Especially you've got deficiency and expediency of both. I think you see a lot of which means you see need. And oh, interesting. It does show up here. Because I'd already figured out what I thought was the problem. When I was up there, I said, "Oh, I won't say that." It's in this 16, so that's good. Okay. So, anybody want to
Okay. Some interesting pairs.
What was the question right now?
what we're looking for? We can do a couple of different things. Either we can identify the issue or the thematic pair, one or the other that's in the overall story, or we can look for a quad that you think has the problem, solution, symptom, and response elements. Yeah, for the overall story. If you want, we can go look at what's his name too. Mark.
Can we look at Mark?
Yes, we can look at Mark. So Mark is
I know
over
what I
here.
like there.
Okay, he's over here.
That's nice that by the way, that it also gives the innermost desires as the four warnings and contemplation as the dividends right there.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, we already selected 4 warnings?
Over here. It shows the benchmark and most desires.
Oh, we already have a benchmark. Oh, yeah.
Because we did good and bad
And dispatch
and
decision.
linear.
Right.
Holistic.
Yeah.
So we have investigation, certainty, potentiality, proaction, reaction, reappraisal, which is deduction, induction, acceptance, non-acceptance, appraisal, which is probability, inaction, protection, possibility, doubt, reduction, production, evaluation, reevaluation. So remember, think of this in terms of this is Mark. So if he's going to change, what does he change from and to?
Well, I know which quad I like in each of the domains. I'm just trying to see if I can.
I think you would change from feeling unaccepted to feeling accepted, but I don't.
I think there's potentiality
Do you
and
think-
certainty in there because first potential, well, no, that's Facebook.
Well,
yes.
yeah, but there will be some overlap because the certain elements will be shared between the 2 domains.
See, now I'm just going to say this because I haven't watched this since it came out and I didn't like it. It was okay.
What?
I thought it was okay. I didn't connect with
Crazy.
me. I think it's because he's a holistic thinker, and there was something about it that I didn't like. And I don't mean his assholiness.
Assholery.
No,
Assholery.
it's assholistic.
Oh, that works.
That's brilliant.
But I think that where he changes is that he changes. It's either the problem solution or the simple response. I think it's the problem solution, and I think it's from proaction to reaction. I mean, because right at the very beginning, the first thing he does is the way he responds is he attacks, and he goes all the way along. He's attacking. He acts first. Now this is not where the symptom is, not where he thinks the problem is, but I think that's actually what he's doing that's causing some grief for him. And eventually he goes into reactive mode, meaning he is responding, letting something happen first, and then he responds to it as opposed to being the one that is. And that was what that came to me. I don't know. I mean, it also has your certainty and potentiality in there as well. But I'm open to any of the suggestions.
But he does friending her is not a reaction, right?
Well, I think it is a reaction to her. See, I think he's been, when he gets, I mean, well, maybe it's a reactive proaction. I'm not sure. But I think that's the pair. Because I think it seems the one that really speaks to what drives him to the being such a jerk. Maybe it's reactive, but it seems just that he seems to be driven by some form of either proaction or reaction, depending on the context.
This, just for my edification, did he send a friend request, or did he? I think he sent a friend request, right?
He tried sending it several times, as I
No,
recall.
he was just refreshing it.
Yeah,
To see if she's
refreshing.
got it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll express.
But I'm, again, I'm.
Yeah, and same thing with me. I'll just express what group seems the best to me. In the overall story, I like expediency because I like the word, but also I'm still trying to sort of define reduction, production. But I'm looking at inaction and protection, and I feel like there's a lot of attempts to protect, like certainly the Winklevoss twins. There's a lot of inaction until they finally until finally the protection argument wins out with them, so that may be more. That's probably more of a symptom response. That I think probably symptom inaction.
Where are you looking?
Under expediency, inaction protection, and whereas so I'm still okay. So reduction versus production.
Where's that?
It's under manipulation, conceiving, and expediency. I don't know. I really haven't thought this through.
The reason here I think proaction works here as well is that you look at where the conflict comes in the relationship in building Facebook, and Mark as protagonist, because he's definitely the protagonist, as I'm saying. He proactively steals the idea and goes ahead and creates it. He is at the end. I mean, he proactively aces out his best friend because he thinks that it's not good for the company, because as a businessman he's not really holding his end up as a business side of the partnership. That those things are create conflict. I mean, I think that those things really create a big potential conflict, and ultimately are the reason there is the lawsuit at the end. Is that because of that? Now, that doesn't mean it didn't create positive stuff from it, but it just seems like the the fact that he was proactive in in these different instances, I'm moving to California. Sure, it might have been a great idea, but it created a lot more conflict in the team.
To your point earlier, you said he's a person that will lash out first and hurt someone before they have the chance to hurt him. I think that's the thing, being proactive.
And ultimately, I think it's the reaction is the lawsuit and the resolution of it is that, okay, look, it's only going to be a speeding ticket. You know, your reaction, it's got to be measured with. You solve things by understanding this reaction is natural, and just deal with the reaction.
So the lawsuit is a reaction.
The lawsuit's a reaction, but ultimately, I think settling is a reaction that'll make it all go away.
Settling is the reaction. Say that one more time.
That settling. Remember, it's a speeding ticket. You know, so react to the reality of it as opposed to
reading into it.
Yeah, just don't try to do anything more. You know. Anyway, that's just sort of what it seems like. Now maybe it's.
See, I might use that evidence to argue for production versus reduction. Maybe the production as the source of the conflict. We're trying to build something big here, and then there's the forces of reduction to let's give this parameters. Let's monetize it. Let's and at the end of the day, it's like it is. It's only $65 million. It's a parking ticket. When you change, when you change your thinking accordingly, then we will have resolved this issue. And also for him personally, his problem is, I think it gets back to the ego thing, the building himself up, in his head of being this, superhuman, and when it boils down to it, it just gets down to reducing it to, I think it was Jeff who mentioned, now he's kind of like, taking his place on the bottom of the social totem pole, in a sense, that he's just reducing himself to, let me just make the simple friend request. Personally, what it boils down to is just like, hey, I'm big. Well, maybe bring it down to like, being a real person, at least for a little while. Just because I like doubt better than investigation for his thematic issue. I do kind of like evaluation and reevaluation for his symptom and response. I have to, come up with more specific evidence. But that's,
his issue is doubt.
Reevaluation.
I like the evaluation, reevaluation. Yeah.
right. Say that again, Jeff.
I like the I too like the evaluation, reevaluation.
That would be, if it's a problem of production, then it's a symptom of reevaluation with a response of evaluation. Well, let me ask you this: if we were to go with investigation for the main character, how is that an issue? How would we illustrate that for him personally?
I'm actually looking at liking the induction, production, reduction, and action. Reason being, if you look at the Winklevoss twins and their pal, you see a lot of protection in action. You've got the one says, let's protect our stuff. We need to protect it. We need to protect it. And it's like, no, we don't do that kind of stuff. We don't see that. And I just want to make sure it's not a sub story.
Well, again, and then again, the university president, the Larry Summers saying,
don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that seems to be more like symptom response as opposed to the problem.
Yeah.
Because it's the stuff that's really in your face. You've got the protection as a problem. Well, it's look at the security on all the different sites, and what information you're protecting or you're not.
He's protecting the brand.
Right.
Well, and he says, you know, you should thank me because I pointed out the flaws in your security, and therefore you should do nothing.
Right. Right. I mean, that seems to be a really constant argument that's being made in many, many different contexts. But let's just try that. So if we make protection a symptom, I mean, let's just try it. That's the nice thing we can do about this. And I do like expediency because I think that certainly thematically, Mark Zuckerberg is all about expediency. I mean, a lot easier if I do it myself without them because they don't know jack and I know everything and I can make this happen faster than they can possibly make it happen faster. And I don't need this guy because this guy will get me there faster. And you know, it's just more expedient to use Sean than it is to use Eduardo. And, and you know, it's like.
Was there any conflict where he does something even though there's no need for doing it?
Only where you see that where when he posts the blog right at the beginning, you know, the production he makes basically being dumped into this huge production. And, I mean, he does. It's like, and it's very personal, because that's the part that's going to be shared with him. So let's just look at
need as the OS catalyst.
I'm sorry. Can you say what you said about protection again? Like, what's protection?
Right, well, okay, you've got the Winklevoss. We have this idea. We need to protect it. You know, this is our idea. Let's sue them. We got to protect our rights. And they bring that that same argument. And one brother says, no, we don't do anything. We're Harvard people. We're gentlemen. We don't deign to react. And then they bring it to the president of the school, and he says, why, no, I'm not going to do anything about this. You know. And everybody's basically don't do anything about it until they finally do react. But that's when you're getting down to the whole production issue. You know, who created this? Who made this? You know, and then okay, you know, I'm not sure how it is a success story, but I'm not sure exactly how reduction fits into that. But hold on a sec. Let's look at the story. Let's look at the.
I'm just going to say the OS catalyst of need brings to mind a moment when he, you know, it's like girls don't just walk around with a sign, you know, that you know says what they're, you know, people need that, and then that.
Okay.
And then just miraculously 5 minutes later, Facebook's on.
Okay, so what we have is we've got.
I see how we're done. Because ultimately, there really is no way to decide who actually owns or created Facebook, so they just kind of boil it down to this, and this.
And then is making it go away. Just
no, it's reducing it down to what are the damages?
What was possible?
Yeah. No, I see it. And the inhibitor of analysis,
Well, no, go ahead.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say because I was trying to figure out the way the OS comes to a close is not divvying up that's the result of everything.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it comes to a conclusion is because she says, well, I could find any jury that could easily blow you out of the water, which is, I guess, reduction says this is one of the hard judging probabilities. So the most likely thing is, if we do go to court, it's going to be even worse for you, and you're going to lose even more money. So you're just going to settle out of court.
Right.
So that, to me, that's what actually resolves her little speech there with him is I could reduce you to what you really are in court. So just settle. And
right.
That's how they do that.
And you see with him, so his fixed attitude is sort of contemplation, an issue of doubt.
I think doubt makes a lot of sense.
And
I wanted appraisal so bad.
He wants it. I know I did too. But
oh yeah, I agree.
He
I could make it work.
Yeah, same here. No, but here's the thing.
Well, you've got evaluation, reevaluation.
I think self-doubt is subtextual here. I mean, his friend, got into the Phoenix Club and he did.
Right.
He could not get past the bike room. He's status-wise, he's clearly, on a lower tier than the Winklevosses or Eduardo.
Right.
And socially, I mean, the whole opening sequence was intentional to show how he's at his computer. Meanwhile, if all the girls that he's about to, sort of offend are out partying, and all the people who are, kind of his antagonists are out partying and living life. And so all those personal doubts that have been, that kind of were set off by the girl in the opening scene.
Right.
I think played into, all those motivations, and
even in that opening scene, the insecurity or whatever, the self-doubts, he makes a bigger deal out of what it is she's saying than what's really she's saying.
Exactly.
Like, he's like, why did you ask me what would be the easiest one to get into? Like, or wait, did she say that?
Well, that's why you see that the symptom
backwards.
is reevaluation.
What?
The symptom is reevaluation. So in other words, what he thinks is the problem is that she's making these, she knows who he is, but she's making these reevaluations of suppositions about who he is, or even the fact that he's sort of trying to do that when really if he'd just taken it at its straight face value.
But isn't production as a problem as somebody makes a big deal out of something?
Yes.
Then it is. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why
Okay.
I thought pro-action or production, they're somewhat, they're not the same. Production, I think, fits better. And if you see unique ability as appraisal, I think that works really nicely. Because basically, this is the cool thing. This is where he's like, it's got to be cool. It has to be. It's got to be cool.
critical flaw repulsion.
Is that what it is?
There you go. Okay, that sells it right there.
Really? Oh, cool. Okay.
That's okay.
And
Aaron.
then you have the benchmark of innermost desires. This is the being rejected. The wanting to be part of the group and being rejected, and the jealousy. Yes, the jealousy is
Yes.
that.
Mm-hmm. And he even says, what drives life? It's it's sex. It's trying to get laid or at least trying to meet a girl, right?
What you mean for appraisal?
Well, no, just the way he talks when he's talking about the relationship status stuff and why do you take the classes you take? Why do you sit where you sit? It's all it's what drives life, and so
you're saying
and
it's a
so
catalyst of need.
yeah. So on both the OS level and subtextually on the main character level. See. And so I think his feelings, his innermost desires to connect with somebody, I think is what's coming forth toward the end, toward the conclusion.
And if you look at the relationship, the catalyst, the strategy, you certainly do get a conflict over what strategy to go to, and the inhibitor is expediency, good old expediency again, where Mark takes the easy way out,
Right.
And that's just like.
It's good. I'm still not quite seeing a main character solution of reduction. Is it that he's put himself at the bottom of the totem pole?
It's just that he's.
Maybe he doesn't reach the solution.
Well,
no, he does.
Well, see, that's tough because it seems to be a change. It seems to be an appropriate change, yet he's still in an unhappy place.
I have a potential for this, which is like
That's
in
order
to be seen as someone worthy, he's got to make Facebook. He's got to do these huge things. At the end, what he has to do is the simple thing of setting a face. It's a very humble,
right. It's sort of like a reduced stature.
Do you like me?
Yeah.
Right.
Please like me. Yeah.
That's that ego kicking in, and I've got to be bigger and bigger.
Well, but by that point, he's okay with doing that because it's not making more out of it than it really is.
Right.
It's actually taking something and doing it in a more understated way, which for him is
We've never done that.
it's very atypical.
I remember in the discussion far earlier, Chris, you said something like that you thought that seemed to be a cost coming in. Somebody in the group mentioned we were talking about judgment, good or bad.
Yeah, I think that the cost, well, you see the cost is the present. I think that what I was talking about as it, what I was saying evolved. Because I think really what we were feeling was that the negative side, apart from him feeling bad, but the negative side really came in very much so in the relationship. That part of it, which this doesn't speak to at all, you know, the story, this story form as we have it does not speak to the relationship through line and the dynamics that drive the relationship. But that would be where you'd see this huge hit. You know, he had a friend, somebody who understood him, somebody who knew all about him, and that he kind of sacrificed the friendship, and that really was an emotional cost.
But we mentioned that he's a billionaire all alone.
Yeah.
And that's certainly the cost of the present.
Yeah.
What would be the requirements? It says changing one's nature. Obtaining, I could sort of see prerequisites, like I could see them getting this and
well, John actually talks about that kind of stuff a lot. You know, you have to become something else. And the problem, one of the big problems is that Eduardo wouldn't become. He could not. He wouldn't allow himself to become what he needed to become. He was sort of staying the same, and that's why he was left out, effectively. You know, it's sort of like, all right, first you're just the nerd, and then you're you have to go beyond just Harvard. You need to take, this needs to become something bigger, and then it needs to become something international, and then it needs to become, world dominating. It's sort of like you have to be constantly evolving, and each step of evolution is required in order to eventually, be able to be the it thing.
Also thinking of other costs of the present, there's some sort of thing sprinkled in where he's like, like he's falling asleep at the computer or falling asleep in a meeting, or
yet he knew the answer.
Right.
Yeah, there were certain.
Well,
there were things sprinkled in.
He was past the. He wasn't sleeping at the classroom. He was past that. No.
Right.
You're a dick.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, well, not sticking around for this one because it doesn't look like it's going to be challenging me at all.
But again, it's just like those hurts in the and those costs in the present moment. I think is pretty consistent throughout.
And I love for the influence character the unique ability is attraction. He's really good looking, and everybody wants him, and that's just irritates the crap out of Mark. I think that's the thing that really needles him.
Why is the judgment bad?
Judgment bad because at the end he is not a happy camper. He's alone for the most part. He's the one person who's ever been his friend, he pretty much treated terribly. The only people who are being nice to him are the ones effectively that he's paying. And that's at the beginning he started off and he was didn't have a girlfriend, but he had a friend, and he had people that were around him that liked him for him as opposed to what he could do for them.
I think at the end of the story, he's still regarded as a jerk. I was thinking through who really, other than Sean, maybe, who really warms to him. There's doubts about Sean.
I mean, the attorney said, you're not an asshole, but you're really trying hard for everybody to think you are. So it's he's able to be read, and he's not like devastated by it. but it doesn't make him feel really good to know what, that people still think he's, maybe he doesn't think he's an asshole, but the fact that he's trying to be just says that he's really still pushing people away.
Especially since he put so much mental effort in figuring out what almost like reading other people's minds, and he thinks he knows all about psychology, and he built this entire business and his empire based on psychology, and yet this woman can read right into him.
Well, sure, that's true of just about everybody. Other people can see you a lot better than you can see yourself, and in certain regards, not in all things.
Plot points. Look at the signpost.
Sure. So actually, let's look at along the progression. Is that easier to see, or is it?
Yeah.
Conceiving to conceptualizing,
playing,
to playing a role. That's the third signpost, and then changing one's nature. It's biggest. He's now a billionaire, and
Well,
it's
in
the
the
biggest thing in
company,
the world. The company's the
remember
biggest
this,
thing in the world.
the idea. I like the fact that it starts in conceiving. That's really, really good. And the role playing, of course, is where Sean is heavily the act where Sean is in.
Yeah.
And changing your lifestyle to California's lifestyle.
Yeah, and then
Eduardo's still sleeping
The
small.
Winklevi have to become not men of Harvard because now they're suing.
Yeah, so and of course, if you put the last act all together, it is about each of these groups sort of changing the relationship with Facebook and how Facebook is sort of has to change to move on. Yes, go ahead.
For the overall story, now is this like signpost 1, 2, 3, and 4? Is this dividing up the movie literally into 4 quarters, or is this out of order? In other words, is this not in sequence with the movie?
Correct, because the movie basically takes the 4th signpost and splits it up and sort of peppers it throughout the rest. So it starts with the beginning of signpost 4, and the movie ends with the end of signpost 4, but then you pretty much get the rest of it is in sequence. You don't seem to be doing too much time bopping. It's otherwise pretty much a sequential plot with the peppering of the signpost 4. So that's why you get this, the signpost 4 of contemplation. That's where him, all the comments about what he's thinking and all that stuff while he's in the it's not the deposition, it's the actual negotiation of the
Good night, I'll see you
settlement.
next week.
Okay.
Bye, Bob.
Bye-bye.
All right. We'll talk.
I'll see you next week.
So it's interesting. The starts off with the main character in memory, and I don't think we see a whole lot there. I mean, if anything, that's probably the one area that's a little bit.
But he keeps going. He asks Sean later, "Do you ever think about the woman that motivated him?" And that is the act where he
gets
the woman that he keeps thinking on.
Right.
So
I'm sorry. Are we talking about memories?
Right.
Okay. How's that sound?
Well, that the first woman that he, in the first scene is essentially they keep on going back to that sort of memory
That's
that
memory of that
story.
rejection, the memory of that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then ending, then circling back around, but contemplation, right at the end as well.
I mean, but you get that all the way through. Okay. And I mean, it's nice because then you've got with the influence character about the past. I mean, in the last sequence, so you've got all the as a framing device, it's great for him because he keeps on recalling his parts of what was going on, but it's sort of that focus on the past. And then of course in the relationship, it's all about sort of learning. So I think that's a really, those 4 in signpost 4 are perfect descriptions of sort of, what's the framing device for the story for each of those through lines.
So understanding as the relationship first act.
I think that it has a lot more to do with the fact that since this is about a relationship that falls apart, I think you start in a more positive place and you see it. I mean, you see the third act is about obtaining, which is of course is when they ace him out of his shares and all of that.
They have an understanding. I mean, they
understand one another. They have this relationship, and toward the end of that act is when you get the understanding that there's this difference between them where people want Eduardo, but they don't want him, and that's going to be
Eduardo keeps assuming these things about Mark as a friend. Like, as a friend, you don't betray a friend and you don't do these things to a friend. And then as he gathers more information, he finds out just these things don't apply anymore.
Right.
In the friendship.
As a concern, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
mostly Z patterns with a hairpin pattern on the lens.
Right, so you've got a rise and fall, I mean, not rise and fall, but you got a big mid-turn. So let's move to California.
Mm-hmm.
You know, suddenly the story takes a big, huge turn, and that's the way it feels. You've got the first half and before California and after California. Right. So that's very consistent with the
wasn't it Eduardo who's first suggested going to Stanford because we need to get this hell off?
Yeah. So, but
he didn't make it sexy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Well, it's hers.
I mean,
no, it's true. He even was going to the New York financial companies instead of the power.
I mean, he's the one who brought sexy back, as I recall.
I like the way Sean was.
All right. Hey, he's the one.
Really good.
Yeah. Justin Timberlake.
Right.
Okay.
I like the way Sean seemed to be lauded for the great big decision of taking the word "the" out of Facebook. Like, anybody could have come up with that.
Mm-hmm. But they get, you know what? That's another reduction thing.
Yes.
You know, it's like keep it simple. You know, make it snappy.
No, that's true. And ultimately, reduction is this solution is that if we settle, it'll make this whole thing, whole process, it'll shorten this whole thing. Opposed to just making it into a big news event.
Right.
Another
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, production is always a problem. Mm-hmm. You certainly see
Creates conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you know, from another angle, production is not necessarily the problem, but in this story, production is the source of the conflict.
Right. And it's like the way they get rid of, you know, the whole chicken story that makes a big production out of it, and suddenly it's a problem. You know. So I think that definitely this seems like a really solid story form for it.
Yeah.
Is this the one you were thinking of?
No, because I really wanted appraisal. I just like that, but I guess I got
the main character.
it other ways. Yeah.
Yeah, you got his unique ability, which I think is.
But it was all super close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Inaction, protection, probability, possibility.
But if you pick the one that you said, does it also work or not?
No. God, I was trying really hard to come up with a way to argue, and it just didn't. This one feels great.
I mean that's the thing is that you can get it, you can shoehorn part of it in, but then the rest doesn't fit.
Yeah. What I want is not important. What matters is what is.
There you go.
That's it.
That's deep, Jim.
Do you change your beliefs based on the evidence, or do you change the evidence based on
the first?
Yes.
As always.
Story
form reigns supreme.
Whichever is handier.
Yeah.
Requires less effort.
Story form always wins.
Yeah. So, thank you guys.
Thanks.
I guess we're going to keep the, we're going to continue with next month is, what's it called again?